What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Hopefully, everyone is having a good day. We have the second major of the year, the PGA Championship. So I thought I'd do a little Go Low podcast, and I just looked. I'm heavily invested. A lot of gambling going on. So I thought we'd just hit on some of the biggest storylines. We'll hit on the venue, which obviously is I would say that this major has become polarizing, controversial. You can probably find a lot of different ways to describe it. It's clearly the fourth major of the rotation, right? You know, Augusta. We'll dive into it all, and then of course I will answer some of your questions. At GoloPod is the golf Instagram at GoloPod, and yeah, just fire a DM. Anything golf related. We try to separate the golf and the football because this is my passion project, especially in the summer with football dying down. OTAs is about to start, but then we get summer break. We get the PGA Championship, we get the U.S. Open, and obviously we get the British Open. So this is a fun little stretch post Masters of just some big time golf with the live guys getting back involved. And it's really really fun to gamble. I mean, I love gambling on golf. I mean, I've been gambling for 20 plus years, and over these last 3 or 4 years gambling on golf, you just don't get these odds with football. So it is really fun, even top tens and top 20s. So we will dive into basically all my bets. But before we dive in to the upcoming week slash end and at Quail Hallow, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. Best ticketing app in America, not even close. Cannot recommend these guys enough. Listen, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to a game? Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go to a comedy show? Do you want to enjoy yourself? Get out of the house, do something fun, mix it up. It's the summer. Listen, I've been going to concerts over the summer for a long, long time. When I first moved to Arizona, I think I went to like 3 or 4 spring training games, hockey games. I've been to so many events because of these guys. Cannot recommend them enough. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's funny. In my house, I have Maria shocked how much golf I watch, and she doesn't quite understand. She's like, "Does the season ever end?" I'm like, "Yeah, this isn't like football. They play every single weekend, but there are 4 tournaments that separate from the pack." And she's a football gal, so I equated that there are basically 4 Super Bowls, and they're called the majors. And let's face it, I would say Augusta, at least for us in America, is by far the number one golf tournament. I think you could make an argument on what is the second biggest major. I have a soft spot for the U.S. Open. It's the first golf tournament I ever attended as a kid. I think was it 97 or 98 at Olympic Club. My dad and his buddy Jerry took me and my friend Travis. I remember they went off on their own. We went off on our own. We followed John Daly. I remember DA Points. I remember watching him tee off. I think Lee Jansen ended up winning. That was a tournament. Yeah, it would have been 98 because Payne Stewart had a really, really good chance to win, and then he were to win the next week or the next year against Phil Mickelson. But to me, when I think the U.S. Open, the challenge of it, typically at some of these venues, even par, sometimes even over par was winning it. I'm a sucker for that. And obviously the Open Championship, there's just something historic about, where golf was invented. They've been playing it for hundreds of years. The elements that come into play, their golf courses look so much different than anything we have beside a couple tracks over here. And this thing falls in its own little category. And I want to start before we dive in to just what I think, obviously, the top 3 contenders, the guys at the top of the betting board. I think this tournament, I listen to a lot of golf content. People often ask, like, what are the football shows you listen to? I'm like, I don't really. I don't take in that much football content. I do take in a lot of golf content. And I think It's probably like this with football, but I think sometimes the golf media can almost be too close to the sun. Listen, I understand that some of these courses, the distance, and most people that I would consider, golf media are big on the rollback. I'm like, I don't know if the actual consumer really cares that much. Honestly, I don't think it matters. And I think they're very, very hard on this tournament and the courses. Last year, Valhalla got crushed by most people involved that get paid to talk about golf. This year, I think a lot of people just like, we go to this venue every single year, Quail Hollow at Wells Fargo. I I don't have as big of an issue with it. I think it's very, very difficult to follow Augusta. So, like, they're going to play in random tournaments. There's no easy way to do this. Now, if you wanted to argue Valhalla, never go back there. I'm not going to argue with you. But Quail Hollow, Aronimink, which is next year, is in Philadelphia. And when I worked for the Eagles, my brother Jeff had come to visit, and we went to the tournament. And at the time, I think it was Tigers tournament in either 2010 or 11. I thought that track's pretty cool. Like, I'm not going to complain about that. Next year is at PG, or in 27's at PGA Frisco, then Olympic Club in 28, which they have redone, which I don't think anyone ever complains about playing at Olympic Club. Like, I think they're doing the best they can. There is no perfect venue for this tournament. I also think people underestimate how difficult it is for private clubs to give up their course to a tournament like this. And, especially at this time of the year, depending on where you're at, like if you're in the Northeast, like golf is just starting again and you're giving up the first couple weeks for your members to play. And if it's in a nicer area, like the members aren't able to participate. And that was a big issue with LA Country Club a couple years ago. It's like the membership wouldn't let that many people in the venue. And it's like, yeah, this is complicated. Now, if you want to argue, like, why don't they just put the PGA Championship at Pebble Beach every single year? Look, I don't know who would push back on that, right? I mean, people have talked forever, put the or put the FedEx Championship at Pebble Beach. I also think it's probably a little more difficult to get Pebble Beach, which is charging currently like $900 a round, to give up their course for a while, So a lot of people are so down on the venues in this tournament. I got to be honest with you. Like, you tell me the PGA Championship's being played, they could be playing in my backyard. I'm going to watch. I don't have as big of a problem with it. The biggest names, the brightest stage. Championship level swings are lighting up Charlotte this week, and DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered for every thrill and moment. From the first tee shot to the Sunday's final putt, experience every shot like never before. You can live bet, you can play props, and so much more. New to golf betting? Don't worry, I got you covered. You're in good company with DraftKings Sportsbook. Kick things off with a simple pick, like choosing who you think will win. Here's the thing. Lines and odds are subject to change. But I love Bryson DeChambeau to win this tournament, plus 950. Other good bets that I like. Xander Schauffele to top 10, plus 180. Justin Thomas to top 10, plus 175. And if you want a little bit of a flyer, a little bit of a long shot, I can give you Gary Woodland to top 20 at plus 450. And here's the big win for new users. Bet just $5 and score 200 in bonus bets instantly. Let's dive into the top three contenders. Because listen, Jordan Spieth was quoted last week talking to Rory McIlroy when Rory said, looking forward to watch you try to get the join me at the Career Grand Slam next week. And then Jordan responded, you mean at Rory Country Club? Rory dominates at this course. He has won here several times. He won last year in a duel against Xander Schauffele, who would go on to win two of the next three majors. He fucking drubbed him on Sunday. I looked up today because I remember watching it. I mean, he destroyed Xander. They were in the last group. It was basically match play. And Rory shot 65 and won by 5 strokes. And it just felt like, God, the momentum Rory had going into post-Masters like Valhalla, the U.S. Open, the British. You're like, I think Rory might win 2 of the next 3 majors. And it was actually Xander who would go on to win the following week. But I think Rory, like you could argue Rory and Bryson are a true coin flip. this week. I've never been to this course. It is clearly going to benefit the longer hitters. And I was listening to, I went for a walk today, and No Laying Up had a preview on the PGA Championship. And Solly's really good with numbers. And he was saying the season currently that Bryson is having driving is one of the greatest driving seasons we've ever seen. And like, I think sometimes with golf, I was just playing in this member guest last week. And by the second day, we're in this group with these guys, and they're fun, they're older. And by like the third or fourth hole, you play five 9 hole matches, and we're on like hole 3 or 4. It actually, yeah, it might have been the third hole we played. And I look at Mark, who again, this guy was a college quarterback, he's an athlete, he's a scratch golfer, and I go, this dude we're playing can play. Like, do you think he played college golf? Like, this guy clearly was once a good golfer. Then a couple holes later, I kind of make a comment. I'm like, did you play in college? And he kind of laughs. He's like, yeah, I was Phil Mickelson's roommate from 88 to 92. And you're like, God, no, this guy's a stick. And sometimes you can just watch a guy play, especially live, and you go, this guy's really, really good. I think if you've scouted Bryson through the YouTube, if you just watch the tournaments, I'm not, or not the tournaments, but his videos, even if you watch the break 50 when he's playing the red, definitely if you watch the random, and I've been saying this for a while, when he just goes to random courses and tries to break the course record, if you just watch him tee off, how reliable that power draw is going 340. I mean, it is a weapon. And obviously, Rory is, I think, widely considered the greatest driver in the history of the sport. Whatever Bryson is currently doing, he's a menace. Now, his irons, especially at the Masters, a little off. You would say Rory with his irons a little on. Uh, I would be stunned if one of these two guys doesn't win. Honestly, if there was a bet, and I look, there isn't. I would have no problem putting like $10,000 on one of these two being like a lock top five. I think it would be stunning if come Sunday, one of these two guys doesn't even either have the lead or is in one of the last two groups. Like this course, I saw today, I follow a decent amount of like caddies on the PGA Tour just on Instagram. And Aaron Fleener, who is JT Poston's caddy, who's a Kentucky guy, big sports guy, was just walking down the fairway, and he's like, pretty sweet conditions, and his feet were just going basically like a couple inches underwater. I mean, it has been soaked out there. It's been raining. Well, what benefits do you have by hitting it far in the air, carrying it 330, 340 yards? Well, anyone knows that's played in the rain, the ball ain't going to roll. So that is a huge advantage to these guys. You know, Bryson, when he was on the PGA Tour, had played well at this course. Obviously, Rory has dominated here. I mean, he's won here several times. He's just very comfortable in this moment. I also think there's a little extra pressure that's just off him. You know, I mean, whatever he slayed at the Masters, which is one of the craziest Sunday roller coaster rounds in the history of golf, especially for a guy that ends up winning it in extra holes. I mean, honestly, what he was the equivalent if Vandervelde in whatever year that was, 99, 98, would have won. Because people forget, Vandervelde went to the playoff. If Vandervelde would have won the 4 hole playoff, that would have been the equivalent of what Rory did, except Rory had all the baggage of the last decade and the previous wins that he carried with him in that playoff against Justin Rose. And the thing with Bryson, I don't know if it's just simply YouTube, but I do think it's fair to say that world has changed the guy's life. It's taken a pressure of everyone just thinking the guy was a loser, geek, douchebag. And listen, I don't know the guy. I know people that know him. He's a Fresno. I mean, he's not a kid anymore, but that's where he grew up. I have a lot of second and third people in my life that just, you know, either grew up playing golf around him, knew him when he was a kid. And listen, if golf is your life, I always defended Tiger when he got in the situation, you know, personally in his life. Like, how come pro athletes in other sports can handle like cheating scandals a little more smoothly? It's because when you hang out with Michael Jordan or Charles Barkley or some of these quarterbacks and the people Tiger was running around with, two things. One, they're the cool kid from the moment they're like 12. And two, they're used to being around a lot of other human beings. They're on a team. Whereas a golfer, you are isolated. You're by yourself. And Tiger, back when Tiger came up, golf wasn't even cool. And Bryson is like a nerd's nerd, but it's a very isolated profession. Where Michael Jordan, even if he is just into his own shit, he's still around other human beings a lot, and he's dependent on other guys. I mean, he passed to Steve Kerr to win the NBA championship, right? He passed to John Paxson to win an NBA championship. It's on Rory. It's on Bryson. And I just wonder if the break 50 playing with Tom and Stafford and Romo and Trump, I don't know. It's just made Bryson, the perception around him, feel a little bit different, which has made him feel a little bit different because he has been a dominant bright lights guy. I mean, going back to start in 2024, tied sixth in the Masters. He finished second in the PGA. And if Xander misses on 18 on hole 72, they're in a playoff in the PGA last year at Valhalla. He wins the U.S. Open. He's T5 this year in the Masters, and honestly didn't even play that good on Saturday and Sunday with his irons. Like, you put the lights on the brightest, this guy's gonna. I mean, if he was a basketball player, he's like Jalen Brunson. He's scoring 35, and I think him and Rory. If you told me this is like the U.S. Open last year, if this is like the Masters this year, it's just these two's going at it. I think it's very believable, and yeah, I mean, I think that I think the winner's coming from one of those two guys. When it comes to Scotty, I definitely look at him a little bit differently because it's been a weird start to the season after he cut his hand making the raviolis, which is a little bit of a bizarre story. But you give him the benefit of the doubt. Anyone that knows a few people knows that story a couple years ago when Dustin Johnson fell down the stairs got red flagged by a lot of human beings. This story, because it's him, family guy, pretty serious cat. Like, I don't think a lot of people red flagged it. I'm just a human being who's been around the block. Just seemed a little different. I don't know what he would have been doing, but it clearly got him off to a weird start. And then a couple weeks ago, he plays in a tournament against kind of randoms and he beats the living piss out of them. I just don't know if this is his ideal event. He does not play this course typically when he doesn't enter the Wells Fargo. That's not really his jam. I think the last time he played it was 2022 in the President's Cup. I actually love him in a month at Oakmont. I think Scotty Scheffler is going to win the U.S. Open. Uh, if I win a little money this week, I will have no problem putting like four figures on him immediately to win the U.S. Open, even if he finishes like 10th or 8th or 12th in this tournament. But listen, I think you have to have a little exposure to him. He's I think when it's all said and done, going to go down as an all-time great. But like this specific venue, this specific week with the rain, those guys are just longer than him. Not that Scotty's not long, but I think he's clearly three of the three big dogs going into this weekend. And again, like it's not taking anything away from him. I would expect him to win multiple times the rest of the season. And I think he's the heavy favorite over Bryson and Rory at Oakmont here in a month. I think the other names that you got to really like are this guy has, we've seen guys go in the wilderness. Spieth's been in the wilderness. Max Homa's kind of currently in the wilderness relative to like their stature. Justin Thomas a couple years ago was struggling to break 80 at majors. And this guy this year, I don't know if it was just relaxing a little bit, changing his putter, just he has a kid, maybe Tiger gave him some advice, whatever it is, he is balling. He easily could have 3 wins this season. I mean, he is a missed putt and a squirrely drive from winning that tournament in regulation last week, let alone just a missed putt away from being in a playoff against Sepp Straka. And clearly he had won whatever the previous signature event at the RBC. JT is playing fantastic golf. Now that Scotty's kind of got his groove back, you could argue more than Morikawa. Right there, Bryson's going to be on the Ryder Cup, but Scotty, Bryson, and JT is our lead dogs right now for the Americans that give you confidence going in to this fall. But he won here in 2017. He is going to be very comfortable here. He's already won this trophy twice. I don't love him necessarily to win, but I feel very, very confident putting a top 10 bet on Justin Thomas. Xander, unlike Scotty, like he legitimately just had a rib injury, which I would imagine when you're swinging out of your ass, as all these pros are now, trying to get however many miles an hour ball speed in the 180s. It can't got to be pretty painful. Hell, even any movement when you have a golf swing, if you have a rib injury, it can't feel good. But he is trending, and to me, like JT, feels like a lock to be in the mix. And unlike these other guys, to get Rory's 4.5, 5 to 1. Even Bryson now is under 10 to 1. Scotty's 4 to 1, right? So you can get Xander at over 20 to 1. If Xander had not been injured and just been playing like he did last year, to me, Xander's number is probably like 12, 13 to 1. But that also means top fives and top tens. He started getting his groove back at the Masters. T8, RBC T18, last week T11. Another guy that bombs it, again, was right there with Rory last year coming on Sunday at this golf course. I like JT and Xander a lot. So to me, we'll get into the bets here in a second. A couple other guys, the top 20 would be guys like Hideki, ball striker, deep. Anyone that saw the viral photo of him putting in the torrential rainstorm, not quite sure that translates to like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but I'm just a sucker for Hideki. I do think Lowry and Fleetwood wouldn't shock me if one of those guys top 10. I mean, Fleetwood plays well in the majors. Lowry's been excellent this season. I definitely like both guys to top 20. My one long shot, because people sometimes tweet at me or DM me like, "Who's your long?" I don't really do long shots in in the majors anymore. Look at who has competed. The Masters you can a little bit, but to me, when it comes to the PGA and the U.S. Open moving forward, like I'm going with the horses. And Gary Woodland, I saw this clip that he did with Dan Rappaport where he said that Quail Hollow is his favorite course on the PGA Tour. He has finished top 10 at Quail Hollow multiple times in his career, and he's also really long. I think he's top 10 in driving this season. He is just, he's a guy who's proven to play well at tough golf courses over the course of his career. But when it comes to length, you can get a top 20 for Gary Woodland at plus 450. You can get a top 30 at plus 250. So to me, when you just look at DraftKings odds for a guy, again, top 20, top 30, top 40 even has plus odds. He's the only guy that I feel comfortable under like, Fleetwood, Hideki, some of those guys are 30, 40 to 1 range. And then obviously the top fives, top tens work off from there. But Gary's the one guy with much longer odds that I'm going to mess with a little bit. My betting card goes as this. I'm going to have action on Rory and Bryson. I respect them too much. I put a little on Scotty as well, just because you don't want to like Saturday or Sunday and Scotty's tied for the lead. You're like, of course, he's one of the great players of his generation, and it's Rory and Bryson because again, it's a golf tournament. So you have a stretch on a Thursday or Friday if you're Bryson and Rory hit a couple shitty shots, all of a sudden you go double bogey and you're just way behind. Like it's hard to play catch up a little bit. But I'm taking all three of them to outright. The one guy I hammered to top five, Scotty and Rory don't have good odds to top five. Bryson, I got, I think, plus 130 to top five. I hammered that. Justin Thomas, hammered a top 10. I have a top 10 parlay, which could pay out pretty big. Again, it's hard because you got three guys in the top 10, but ties at DraftKings count. Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, and Fleetwood. Have another one with Xander to win, JT to top 10. I have some parlays with like Bryson to win, Xander to top five, Hideki to top 20. Shane Lowry's a guy that I dabbled a little bit to top 10. Um, I have some Scotty win with Xander and JT. So I'm basically just sticking to 6, 7 guys. I am not messing with randoms. Like, maybe this is Sam Burns. Maybe this is even Ludvig. He's playing like shit. Off John Rahm. Morikawa off. Uh, I'm sticking with the same 6 or 7 horses and just letting it ride. If they all have bad weeks, I'm screwed. If we get 3 or 4 of them in the mix, I'm cooking with gas. So other than that, I'm pretty excited. I think there's something pretty special about major golf that just feels pretty big when you're watching on television. Let's answer a couple questions really quick. At Golopod is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. We will start with Reed. Been listening to you and Colin for 5+ years. Question for the pod. I've played a lot of classic gems like Pebble, Stadium, Chambers, Gamble Sands. Never been there. But my favorite is paying around 150 for a killer under the radar course like Raven. Was curious if you have a bang for your buck group of West Coast courses. If you haven't played Wine Valley in Washington, plan to do so someday. Absolute steal and tons of wineries to keep the wife busy. Also, love the Never Bet Cantley take. The guy is terrible watch. I there is, he's a guy that's actually playing pretty good golf, but like Reed just said, there is no conceivable way that I would ever put money on him. He can win. I'm cool with not winning any money. I'm not watching or rooting for him. The one thing in Arizona, for example, if you can handle the heat, the price drops dramatically. So you can play all the sweet public courses. I'm playing tomorrow at Desert Ridge. It's I think Nick Faldo designed them both, and I think I'm playing for like 130 bucks, and that's a course in I don't know December that's probably 320 bucks. Now it's not worth 320 bucks, but all these courses the price drops that you can play around here for most courses under 200 bucks. Again, if you can handle the heat. Uh, in Northern California, I would say this for really cheap, you can play Chardonnay and Eagle Vines, which is 10 minutes away from Napa. I think technically it's in Napa, but like downtown Napa, it's like 10, 15 minutes away. When I lived in Walnut Creek in like 2018, 2019, 2020, those were like my home courses because it was like 20 minutes away. I could go in the afternoon and play for like 40, 50 bucks. Um, and I listen, they're not perfectly maintained, but they're in the heart of wine country. Just really, really cool. Another sneaky gem is in Livermore, California, called Wente. Gets a little windy, but again, in the wine country, I think it's a little pricier. I haven't played it in years, but it's actually a pretty solid track. So I'm with you. When you can find a gem for like under $150, you're like, this is a pretty well maintained track. I'm all over it. What happened to Sobel? Loved him on the pod. Well, Sobel used to work for uh, Action Network. So when we have Stuckey on, we have a partnership at the volume. So those guys, he used to come on. It was all under the kind of one umbrella here. And then he left the Action Network to do other stuff. So once he left, it became like I couldn't just have him on um, just out of the goodwill. He's got other stuff to do. He's got a serious show, and I think he's writing for MGM. So I think there were some conflicts of, who supports the show gambling wise. But I'm with you. I texted him probably a month ago. Sobel's the man. Quail Hollow may end up being a great venue, but I find it a letdown to have a major at a yearly PGA Tour venue. I know Pebble has a yearly PGA Tour event, but Quail Hollow does not have the same prestige as Pebble. I know the US Open has swooped up some great courses for their anchor sites, but there are some amazing famous courses in the USA that could be good venues. What courses do you think would make good PGA Championship venues? This is what I was talking about. You know, you have to convince these unreal private courses. One, some of these private courses, like there's a couple private courses right down the street from me. There is Silverleaf, which is really prestigious and expensive. There is Whisper Rock, which a ton of the pros play at. There's Estancia. None of these courses are hard enough to host an event, for example, in Arizona. And two, there's not like a setup where you could get fans there. So some of these courses, and who knows, maybe they wouldn't even be interested in giving it away for their members. There are a lot of variables that come into play because I'm with you. There are probably some badass country clubs all over the nation that would be awesome. One, are they long enough? Because if they're not, these guys will fucking annihilate them. And two, if they are either long enough or you can create a difficult setup, is the course willing to give their course to the tour or the PGA for a while and basically have the members be like, yeah, take my course for a month? Because some of these courses, depending on where they are only open 6, 7 months a year. So if I basically take one of those months away, the membership, like I'm still cutting checks for dues, you know? So it's not, it's more complicated than I think the way we just casually talk about it. It just doesn't bother me as much. It's not going to be a hill I'm going to die on when it comes to people freaking out. But yeah, there are probably countless courses that would be badass. I do think an underrated part is, can you get fans into the site? Does it fit for fans? Because LA Country Club actually kind of did, but the membership was like, we ain't letting the poors on this course. Randos ain't stepping foot on here. And your boy, it's probably the most prestigious course I've ever played. And I got some direct orders before we showed up of like 6 things. Like, these are the do's and don'ts. And then once you got there, it's actually a little more chill. Like after we played, we had beers in the clubhouse. It wasn't as stiff as you think. But the members as a whole, we're not going to let people just on the course. And that's, I don't think it's any different than a lot of these tracks. People don't realize like Augusta's not open 12 months a year. I think for the membership, it's only opened a small percentage of the year, 5 or 6 months. So these courses, for most of us, we view it like, yeah, we're going to play whenever we want. It's not really like that in a lot of places, especially depending on the weather. Been listening to Three and Out, big Dolphins fan and big golf fan. Curious what's in the golf bag. Can you go through in detail what you carry play with? I saw this when I was getting ready for the show because I take screenshots, so it's easy to bang out the uh, mailbag. That might be a good video. I actually got it's in the garage, but it's called it's a Bushnell Foresight. So it's not, it's in the TrackMan world. It's not. I mean, it was not. I mean, TrackMan's like 20 grand. This was 1800 or whatever. But every time I go to the range now, I take this thing with me and I just see how far I hit it. And especially with driver, you see how hard your ball speed is. It's incredible. Changed my life, even though the ball doesn't go any straighter. But you can't go to the driving range without it. That might be a pretty good YouTube video. I might have to bang that out sometime this summer. I got to get back on the golf courses. I have it on camera. Question for the mailbag. Do you think there's a lot of pressure on Ludvig to win a major this year? I know he's still young, but he's talked about to be the next face of the tour. He's 25, and many other players on tour right now had better success at the same age. Scotty is also only 28. I don't see him topping him anytime soon. Huge fan of the game, but I feel like he will be another guy who doesn't live up to the hype. I still think he's a great player who will have success. I just think the conversation he's in right now is a little premature. I think that's natural in sports. I mean, I think that's true in football. I mean, before he ever played a snap, we had Caleb Williams as a top 10 quarterback. You know, I think Jaden Daniels, one season, we have him as a Hall of Famer. It's just our, I mean, it was crazy. Like Jokic, they did the opposite. They kept beating up. It's like, guys, have you guys watched this guy play? And it took him like multiple MVPs and playing in all these games. People were like, he's awesome. But it's hard to prove yourself. I mean, people are nitpicking. I know he just tore his Achilles, but Jason Tatum won a championship. People are like, how good is he? You know, Jalen, it happens with our athletes. So I think it's just par for the course. And in golf, you know, you can make a lot of money winning a tournament here and there, finishing high, and just raking $8 to $10 million a year on the course every year and whatever. Probably, I'm just guessing, 5 off. You're making $15, $20 million every single year. And you look back over a 10-year span, you're like, I made a ton of money. But maybe I didn't win a major. And we've seen a lot of guys over the years. You know, Sergio Garcia and Adam Scott were two of the best players on the PGA Tour for a long period of time. They were elite talents, elite. And it took them late in their careers to win a major, right? So, I mean, Justin Rose is one of the great talents of his era. and his era spans multiple eras. He's got one major. So it's you can be an all-time great strong. You can be a great player. And if you're a betting man, and I think Ludvig, like you said, stud, is he more likely to have like an Adam Scott, Justin Rose type career, or is he more likely to be Scotty Scheffler? You'd say he's probably more likely to be like Adam Scott. And there's nothing wrong with that. You fly in private jets, you live in multiple big houses. Like his career is gonna go great, but I mean the chances he's just gonna beat everybody constantly. You could not say that now. But then once it happens, like I don't know if 4 or 5 years ago you would have said that about Bryson, and then Bryson figured it out. Now Bryson was younger when he came out. Here's the thing. Like, here's a good example with Bryson. Let's just use the top three guys in this: Bryson, Rory, and Scotty. If it was the NFL or the NBA, those guys would 100% be number one picks. Bryson would have been like a Cooper Flag or a Caleb Williams. Ton of hype, more than even Rory. To me, Bryson would have been one of the most hyped collegiate golfers coming out to the pros if it was a team sport in a long time. I would say Scotty would have been a pretty big one too, but so would Ludvig. Like Ludvig, if you put him in, use that example, is a number one overall pick, right? So's Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland. Like golf's hard. Golf is because you can dominate and play well and finish fourth a lot. And he did win a tournament this year. Is he going to win a major this year? I mean, based on the way he's playing, like to me, he's a stay away right now. And I love gambling on him, but he's just a little squirrely. At what point does the Ryder Cup start building for the future and bring in some young guys who might not be at the top of the rankings? Young players have been huge for Europe, like Ludvig, McIntyre, the Højgaards, and it helps them get used to the environment and pressure and sets them up for future success. I personally would much rather see Mav McNeely, Novak, or Ben Griffin than someone like Wyndham Clark, Glover, or Harmon. I agree with you. I do think that decision is easier to make if you're like an old captain. If you're like Jim Furyk or Phil Mickelson. I know he's not a captain or probably will ever be now with live stuff, but a guy like that in his 50s who's well established. Keegan Bradley is not going to be thinking about any of that. I think this is the wrong captain for that mindset. Keegan Bradley is not going to be caught up in we need this guy to get reps for the next three Ryder Cups. He is going to pick this team like Belichick sets the 53 for a playoff game. All that matters is winning this playoff game. Malcolm Butler sit on the side. I'm mad at you. I mean, Keegan is going to be thinking so short term, and rightfully so. I don't blame him because he wins this, he's a legend. I mean, so he's thinking less about, was it Potty Harrington, the European Ryder Cup captain? Or was it the President's Cup? Whoever was whenever Zach Johnson got his ass kicked, like Zach Johnson would have been a good guy to be like, let's pick some. Keegan is not going to do that. Zero chance. I'm drawing a correlation between Tiger and Michael. People say MJ's era was the golden age of the NBA, and golf certainly hasn't had a star reach. Tiger's level of fame since his prime, I would agree. To follow MJ, the NBA had guys like Kobe, LeBron, and Steph to take up the mantle post Michael. What's your take on how golf has dealt with its post Tiger evolution? Do you feel the players taking the reins can be icons of the sport like Kobe, LeBron, and Steph? Love the show. Okay, we're going to end on this. I think it is very, very difficult to get to the stature. Like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods are all-time outliers. If you did a Mount Rushmore of most famous, most accomplished athletes, you could argue those two guys in the history of America, you could argue that both of them should be on it. So it's like there aren't many before and there won't be many after. Even like Kobe wasn't Michael. Like I don't know anyone in my life, like in my actual life, that says LeBron over Michael. I love Steph, and he's a way more enjoyable watch than LeBron for me. but like he's just not quite that. And I think all those guys, though, like you said, are huge and they're worldwide. I think the closest thing the tour has to that is Rory. And I think when you look back at the history of the game in my life in golf, you'd say Arnold Palmer is right. I think he's right up there with Tiger as the most famous golfer of all time. But a huge part of his fame is like the business, right? I mean, hell, the drink. Can I get an Arnold Palmer? I mean, that's it's like, can I get a Jack and Coke? Can I get a Tito soda? I mean, it's when you have a drink call, anyone listening that's in the beer or beverage business, that's a powerful thing. Like one of the things that makes Tito's so popular, obviously it's good vodka. It's easy to say. And I was taught this a long time ago. Like, can I get a Tito's soda? It's just very, very easy to say. I mean, the easiest to say of all time is a Jack and Coke. I'm not a big whiskey guy, but it's hard to beat that, right? And Arnold Palmer became iconic that way. And I would say Greg Norman, while he's known for choking, and I mean, he's one of the great talents of all time, his clothing line took him to another level. So when you look at the guys now, I would say Rory is pretty iconic right now, and he's an international star. He's closer to me to like a soccer star or one of the tennis stars, like Rafa Nadal, or I'm not putting Rory over Messi, but those guys transcend countries, and that's what Rory has done. And I would say Bryson, using some of those examples of like, when you think Steph Curry, you think 3 pointers. When you think Kobe, you think Mamba. Like things are associated with them. I would say Bryson with the YouTube thing is really worked for him. So to me, those guys are bigger than Scotty in terms of the way you're saying. But I think anyone beside Rory has a long way to go. And I don't think any of them are eclipsing Tiger. I think we would be hard pressed to see anything even remotely close to Tiger. Like we're not seeing another Michael Jordan, but we have seen, like you said, things that are enormous. I I mean, I think by far the biggest is Rory. Speed hasn't been good in forever. And then even like the Xanders and the JTs, like it's not even in the same world. So I think Rory and the Bryson stardom on the internet has taken him to another level. And to me, if Bryson can win, I think same Rory and Bryson, Bryson has the same amount of majors as Scotty. If it's all said and done, Bryson can win like 7 or 8 majors. Like it'd be a really big deal. And if you told me right now, like who would you bet on winning more majors over the next 5 years, Bryson or Scotty? Like that's not an easy thing to answer. I think that's a coin flip, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Bryson wins more. And who knows? Whenever Live ends, like, and they get back together. So I also think it's easier to make superstars. It's like John Elway, Joe Montana, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Basketball. Now Jokic and Luca and Cooper Flag. It's kind of easy to make stars in team sports. Shohei Ohtani, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout. Like it's just Aaron Judge. Golf's a little harder, you know, because you can't. A huge part of the brand sometimes is like the team. So it's like, damn, I play for the Yankees and I'm a star. I play for the Lakers and I'm a star, right? In golf, like you got to produce, you got to dominate at the highest level. And that's what Jack did. That's what Arnie did. That's what Tiger did. And that's what Phil did for a long time. And I think Rory, Bryson, and Scotty's got a lot. I don't think Scotty would ever be on the level of the other two, but I think Rory and Bryson can be pretty freaking big when it's all said and done. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the golf tournament.